Good morning. It's SJU on Fandom Entertainment. It's Wednesday, and that means we're talking about Star Wars, but not just Star Wars. We got some Christopher Nolan news, and we're going to get to some cool fan questions from you guys. Actors that should have revivals. We're going to curate our own personal film festivals. It's going to be a good show today because I have Dan.
Hello.
I have Eric Goldman.
How's it going?
And I have Ed Greer.
Hey!
With me. Look at this fantasy SJU fantasy draft poll. I'm into this one. I'm very into this one.
This side of the table did not get the memo on the shirts.
Yeah.
We're in uniform.
I actually, I stand outside of your apartment and just try to get a glimpse in. That's how I choose my wardrobe on a daily basis. It is me. I'm also going through your trash.
It's like a 90s redo of the Warriors, and you're like, the Pearl Jams. Just that guy.
Pearl Jams!
Or the Screen Junkies / Fandom version of the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's the Spoon Man again.
All right, Star Wars. Enough Soundgarden references, guys. You're here for the Star Wars talk. A ton of new characters and details were revealed for Star Wars Episode 9. This is via Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair released their ultimate preview. This is a group of cover stories today, giving us an inside look at the making of Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, yeah. Right? Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker. I put my in the wrong place. I'm very sorry. Oh, look at them fighting in that misty snow. Actually, that's Ash there in front of King's Landing. Spoilers. So this included talks with director J.J. Abrams and the cast. In addition to the always awesome Leibowitz photos that come with any high-profile Vanity Fair shot. We got some cool details. We're going to learn more about the origins of the First Order. We got our first look at in details about the Knights of Ren. And, oh, God, I love her weird...
the Rocketeer.
Yeah, the scoundrel Rocketeer look. I'm super into it. Super into it. It's the Rocketeer went to Canto Bite, and I'm here for it. Eric, you parsed through this quite a bit and helped us put this script together. What did we learn? Are there any interesting things that stood out? Any cool tidbits?
I mean, on one hand, of course, it is funny that there was a lot of time spent on a story that did not tell you much in the details of the plot itself. They're very good at that in general. J.J. Abrams is a master at that.
Oh, yeah. And Feige.
Yeah, and Feige, yes. But yeah, so a lot of it was the photos itself, obviously getting these big looks. The Knights of Ren stood out. Also, though, it was interesting seeing them talk about sort of the theme of the trilogy, of what it's all about, which is there was this quote from Abrams saying that the trilogy is about the young generation, the new generation having to deal with all the debt that has come before. It's the sins of the father. It's the wisdom and the accomplishments of those who did great things, but it's also those who committed atrocities, and the idea that this group is up against this unspeakable evil, and are they prepared? Are they ready? And I just thought it was interesting because people said, oh, Force Awakens was mimicking the original too much, and then some people thought Last Jedi was taking away too much from the original trilogy. So I thought it was interesting for him to say that a theme is kind of this younger generation. How will they deal with what they were given by the earlier generation? And I guess I guess we'll have to see if it actually accomplishes that. But I thought that was interesting to see that that's him saying that's what the purpose of it all is supposed to be.
Yeah. It's also interesting, I don't know, Last Jedi seemed to have so much theming around it. It's interesting to see J.J. Abrams saying the word theme around his next Star Wars movie at all. Instead of just like, it's ships and they crash into each other and there's swords and...
Well, he also said, it was interesting though,
that's hyperbole, not saying that if you didn't like Last Jedi, that's all you want, blah, 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 blah. That's how I talk.
He did say that he felt less precious this time compared to Force Awakens about sort of giving people exactly what they want from a Star Wars movie. That I can't remember if he used the word experimental, but he certainly used, like, he talked about maybe going a little bit weirder or at least a little bit more like, oh, here's what I want to do. Again, for better or for worse, since I know that was a polarizing thing with Rian Johnson doing what he wanted to do. But it sounded like he was saying that, this time out, I'm not trying to evoke exactly what people think Star Wars is. I want to do that, but also maybe go in some new directions.
Right on. So sort of I don't know, sort of a meet in the middle almost.
Meet in the middle, yeah. And then the other thing is, and again, this is a big question, is and I know he's already said this, but he reiterated that this is the end of a 9-movie story. That this is really, it's not just the completion of this trilogy. It has to be a completion of what began with, in some ways, Phantom Menace, in other ways, A New Hope, depending on how you look at it. But it has to really feel like a complete story of 9 movies. very tricky. I certainly don't be
that's
for that.
especially considering the albatross that is the prequels. Like, I mean, are they suddenly going to lean back in?
I mean, I've been told retroactively that the prequels are good movies that got bad raps. So I don't know. I don't even know anymore. I don't know what's good or bad anymore. I really don't, Joe. I've lost. I don't know. I just don't know.
He's adrift.
On a long enough timeline, what did they say? They used to say hookers in old buildings get more respectable with age.
Hookers, old buildings, and the prequels.
Yeah, and the prequels. You got to add the third thing.
Right.
Get more respectable with age. Well, we've had sort of a teaser trailer, and we've had this Vanity Fair expose. Between all of that, is there anything that you guys are looking forward to the most? Anything that's piqued your interest the most? For me, I think it's probably Knights of Ren. That was the one thing in Last Jedi where I was like, that's not a toy you should have shelved. That's a cool that was one of my favorite things in Force Awakens, was like, who is this mysterious gang of ruffians? And are they all named like Dave Ren, Steve Ren, Jimmy Ren, and led by Kylo?
My brother Ren.
So I am excited to see those guys in play. That was just such a cool design to me. I like the idea of almost a reverse Dumbledore's army rising up in Luke's camp and all making themselves some weird-looking helmets.
I'm the Knights of MC Ren. I'm just looking forward to their verse on F the Police. I'm looking forward to that because I hear midichlorians make you rap good.
They do.
But are they Jedi Knights? Has that been totally established? Because that's one thing this canon does do a lot. Like, remember, we thought, us super Star Wars nerds, I'm a daywalker amongst those because my girlfriend reads all those books. But she was telling me about all the clone bodies and like the Clone Wars being more about like them cloning Jedi and Dark Jedi and Sith people and they're having no souls and all this super Jedi lightning force power battles and all this jazz. And then the Clone Wars happened and it was just like, we got a bunch of Jango Fetts and they're gonna shoot people in the back. That's it.
So I don't.
What I mean?
I don't know what these guys. I'm assuming purely based on because we saw the flashback and they're standing with Ben. I'm assuming, and he says me and a handful, or they say him and a handful of students.
Right.
So that's me sort of assuming that the Knights of Ren are those handful of students, but I don't know. Those might have been guys that Snoke assembled. And you're right. The EU does get really the books really do get clone happy.
They get very clone happy.
Quite clone happy.
Yeah.
Luke with a W.
Yeah. Luke. Clone Luke. These guys also might be, we're bringing back Palpatine. Who knows? These guys might have all gotten cloned off of Luke's hand. We know that Luke's hand was supposed to be in play in the opening shot of Force Awakens. That was supposed to be the opening shot, right?
It was.
Luke's hand floating around in space.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's giving the audience the finger.
Dan, is there anything that piqued your interest on these images, or?
I mean, it looks cool. We're just at a point where I just don't even want to speculate. I just want to see the damn thing. Like, this is May. We got December. I got to save some takes. I got 7 months of talking about this before it even comes out. I already saw today EW ran a story about this story that was like one line in it was like, oh, we got our first look at the Knights of Ren, like the group that led Ben Solo astray, and that's one line, and then people took that one line and they're just like, EW confirms that the Knights of Ren led Kylo Ren astray. That means that Snoke didn't do it. Well, what was Snoke even in the movie for? Well, why does Snoke even exist? I don't understand. It's like I just like it. I
understand.
Can't. We had Endgame and then Game of Thrones, and it's like I'm so drenched in lore right now and speculation, and it's just like I'm at a point with Rise of Skywalker where it's like the pictures look cool. JJ's gonna do what he does. I want to see the movie. I just want it to happen.
We're gonna plan help us in the comments. We're gonna plan the dopest vacation for you. I feel like you've got some PTO built up and you deserve it.
Yeah.
No lore, no speculation.
Yeah.
I think it's because people
just a beach and some Hitchcock.
Even yesterday when people even yesterday I think when we talk about Game of Thrones, because a lot of people are like, why do you guys talk a lot about like what the internet says, like what Twitter says, and like focus so much on that media? And I think that part of it is that like a lot of people, like most people with actual jobs, not what we do, like live in a real world, and then they go and they look on the internet, and then that's like a part of their day. And like for us, because of the nature of what we do, it's like it's all day, every day. Like
I was born in the internet.
Yeah, I was born shaped by it.
I was born with these takes.
So a lot of times, like the internet chatter, which for a lot of people is like a part of their day, like for us is like a major, substantial chunk of our day.
Yeah.
Is this, and so it I think perhaps it wears on. I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but it wears on me a little bit sometimes more than the average person, just because like after a while it's just like overload, and so you just want to kind of pull the plug.
Tired Bane.
A little bit. Yeah. So for me, it's just like I am very curious to see what happens. I don't know how this is going to fit thematically with everything that's come before it, just because it's been such a weird sine curve with this trilogy from where it started, and then just stylistically with Rian Johnson and his sensibilities, and now back to JJ. I like to look at these pictures. I like the desert feel of them, the character designs, and I hope that they are able to construct something with this movie that is a nice finale, because we got one largely with Endgame, which people seem to like with some quibbles, and then we did not get that with Game of Thrones. Right. And so I like it when fans are happy.
Yeah.
I like it, and that's not like a looking down on anyone. It's because I'm one of them too. I legitimately like when someone is able to make a conclusion to something that people like, because that's great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It saves everyone a lot of. I don't like it when people are angry about things, because that means that they're not happy.
That's
I want
super
people
fair.
to be happy.
I don't know about you, Goldman. I'm exhausted by not liking wrestling.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I want to love it, and every day it makes me angry.
It's like, why are you doing this?
Why are you doing
this is
any of
something
this?
that I intrinsically love, but you're making it very difficult. I will say, by the way, my simple answer to what did I like the most of this was that photo of Kerry Russell, because I love Kerry Russell. Yeah. And I love that the creators of Felicity, which is a show I love, were Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams. And because of that, she has now been in Mission Impossible, Planet of the Apes, and now Star Wars. And will she take off the helmet? Will she not? I don't know. But she's awesome no matter what. So.
Yeah.
And she did a great job in all those movies.
She did. And then The Americans, if you haven't seen, is one of the best shows ever. Yeah. So check it out.
No, she's incredible. Man, if we were a little later in the script, this would segue us perfectly into a fan question, but we're not there yet. Not there yet.
Well, I'm looking forward to. I mean, I follow this one guy. I won't even name him, but he's sort of a muckraker, but he's a good guy. And he put up this thing. It was
people don't use the word muckraker enough.
I know, right?
Is he engaged in yellow journalism?
Well, he put up this thing, and it was like in-game. Some dudes on Reddit had edited in-game and edited out all the girl power stuff and any sort of minority stuff. And they were like, this makes it better, tight, and they were uploading it and stuff. And it was very few people were uploading it, but it became a story on this guy's page. And so I'm just waiting for the one where it's like, I don't want to see Finn and his sister riding them dewback Yetis, whatever the hell they were riding.
I hope they're dewback Yetis. That is all we're calling them from now on.
Yetis.
In fact, I'm going to say, if it has 4 legs and you can ride it, I'm calling it a dewback Yeti.
Just queue up Old Town Road right now.
This trilogy's been big on the space horses, I will say. Two movies back to back with variations of space horses.
Crystal Critters.
Yeah.
Do you think
Crystal Critters.
Do you think folks that really disliked Last Jedi got really nervous when they saw more space horses?
Oh yeah.
In JJ's?
How dare they go back to space horses?
Yeah, I thought we had enough space horses.
Well, to be fair, those were kind of like, they seem like space impalas or something.
Yes, that's true. This is straightforward space horses.
Let's put our hand over the fire real quick, because you brought it up. JJ said that this is a conclusion to 9 movies. Mm-hmm. Do you, and you're sort of talking about like you want for the sake of fan sanity and love and hearts for things to stick the landing. Do you make a satisfying conclusion to 9 times, right. 9 movies for how did you do?
It's so hard, right? Because even with the Emperor, right? It's already so like divisive. Bringing him back, is that just pandering, or does that make sense because he's the Phantom Menace? And if this is wrapping up the story of 9 movies, got to bring back the Phantom Menace. That's so tricky, right? Like, because there's a version of this movie where we're gonna see Hayden in a Force Ghost. We're gonna see like there's a million things they can do. There's so we had the same thing with Endgame, of course, too. About how do you? That was 22 movies, and it was an ending, but not quite an ending. But it was certainly an ending in a lot of ways for some characters. This is even more tricky though because it's been 40 plus years. So I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful.
40 plus years, and then on top of that, like a million things that people love.
Yes.
Like
or hate. Yeah, that's
ebbs
the
and
thing.
flows.
Love or love
Ebbs
to
and
hate.
flows
Yeah,
have been
40
massive.
By the time that it comes out, it'll be like 42 years since Star Wars came
Almost,
out, and
yeah.
it's there's not. That's the thing is, I really hope that JJ and company are just making the story that they want to make, because across 42 years, there's not one Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
There are people who saw the originals. There are people my age who the prequels came out when they were young, but in like high school, college age, who aren't big fans of them. There are fans who the prequels came out when they were kids who like those movies because they grew up with them and have a completely different opinion on the prequels and don't like the original trilogy as much as people at my age do. There are people who only came into Star Wars with these new movies, and a lot of them probably don't understand what the big deal about The Last Jedi is because they like that. So the idea that there's like one monolithic Star Wars fandom
I've got friends with kids now. Like Star Wars to them is only the Forces of Destiny shorts.
Right.
And then the Clone Wars animated series for several years.
Yeah.
Star
So
Wars.
it's like if they are able to somehow thread this needle to hit that exhaust port on the fandom and like pull out something that like everyone loves, like that's like gonna be miraculous. But I think that in trying to do that, you could also impact it on the surface of the Death Star, and then the planet just blows up. So I just hope that they are not necessarily going like, well, what's gonna make everyone happy, and more, what do we think serves the spirit of the trilogy, serves these characters, and goes from there. That's what I hope. But I mean, that's probably what Rian Johnson was trying to do too, and it didn't work out for a lot of people.
I mean, going into Endgame, I don't even need to get into specifics of Endgame, but yeah, Endgame for at the ending has stuff that I feel like they were like, this is emotionally satisfying, even if the minutia of it won't work for everyone. And I feel like that's the best approach. It's never going to make everyone happy. Like we're saying, it's pretty much impossible to make everyone happy, especially with something this popular. But yeah, I agree with you that I just hope that, let's just focus on what feels right to wrap these character stories up and not have to fit in a reference to every single thing ever. Because that won't work.
Even Endgame was only dealing with 11 years. Of fandom and baggage, and it's like there's still a general range of ages and stuff that people had, whereas Star Wars, it's massive. There are senior citizens who love Star Wars.
You're never going to satisfy every corner of the Star Wars diaspora.
No. I have
it's
friends.
just never going to happen.
Again.
Nail it.
That's good words.
Look, I have good friends. Star Wars to them is the EU novels, and the moment those got cut off at the knees, like. Star Wars was done, so I don't.
There's no more Luke with 2 U's.
Yeah, there's no more Luke with 2 U's. There's no more Thrawn trilogy.
No more Anakin Solo.
Yeah,
people liked Anakin Solo.
Yeah, all that. All that stuff. I don't. Short of someone blows the horn of Gondor and like Luke's Force Ghost appears and Ahsoka shows up from Rebels and what's that little kid Ezra Bridger walks in and he's like, I'm back too, but he's still just animated for some. I don't.
Kister comes in from episode 1.
Fair.
I just really hope that things. I hope things that really do go in cycles though. Where, it's like, okay, at one point disco was super hot, and then a bunch of DJs who liked rock and roll, long hair music decided they hated all these people having so much fun, so they burn up all the records and they make it uncool. How I propose this, everyone in fandom, and I mean that with both meanings. Let's just make this sort of toxic fandom that hates everything, that hates the ending of everything, that you can't satisfy. Let's make these people terminally uncool. That's what we need to do. We need to make these people terminally uncool. And make that just like the lamest thing you can do in fandom is to be that type of person. I read a tweet by Mike Lawrence, very funny comedian, and he stated, "You know what would be the funniest show ever? Just get a bunch of these dorks who signed that Game of Thrones petition, get a bunch of them in a room, make them work on the season. Make them come up with ideas that all of them can agree with, and watch the line producers just laugh at them while they go horrendously over budget, and then try to actually make something. And as they kill each other, we release that footage on HBO. And that's a great show. You know what I mean? And that's real as hell to me, dude. I hate that the Game of Stars is what this is going to turn into, no matter what happens when it comes out. No matter what, it's Game of Stars. I didn't like how Drogon didn't burn up Phasma.
Well, I think the challenge is like everybody's intense love for everything that is Star Wars wasn't necessarily immediate. Like there was a slow burn for everything that came before. People are attached to background characters from the first 6 movies because eventually there were comics, there were a million books, and I think
the cult of Wedge Antilles.
Star Wars is this like overwhelming cultural phenomenon. Really only goes back to the prequels in a way. Like I mean, I grew up as a Star Wars fan, and there were definitely a lot of other Star Wars fans, and probably the internet is a big part of it too. Like we all found each other. But yeah, when I grew up, like Star Wars was a thing. Yeah. But it was a thing. It wasn't like the thing.
But we didn't have to have these constant rolling boils of different fandom. Like the fandom could peter out and go away.
Yeah, because it was legit quiet for so many years. Is the thing until
I grew up in the dark times.
Well, I mean,
between Return of the Jedi.
The books and stuff like that were definitely like a full tidal wave. But I think sort of to speak to what you're talking about, you have that rolling boil of what Star Wars became versus the internet, which is putting something in the microwave for 30 seconds with a spoon in it and it explodes. And like those things clash. Like I honestly think like these 3 movies over time, as more comics come out, as more books come out, as more shows come out, and we build up the mythology around them, because the first 3, like, they feel sparse because I know everything about everyone in the first 3 movies. We know the history of the werewolf guy in the spaceman suit. Like, whereas we don't have that context yet for, like, I think, even if the immediate reaction to did we stick the landing on all 9 movies is like a resounding, like, remake all 9 Star Wars movies.
Remake all of them except Star Wars and Empire.
I think eventually the rolling boil of the nature of the Star Wars fandom will look at it differently.
I'm going to make a second prediction about this film.
Okay.
My first one was that the line that Kylo at some point in the movie will say, "My name is Ben." My second one is, I think that at some point in the movie there's going to be a Force Ghost reunion. And Luke will be there, and Obi-Wan, whether that's Ewan McGregor or a Moff Tarkin, Alec Guinness, but probably Ewan McGregor because you can actually get him. Yeah. And Yoda and Hayden Christensen. I maybe
so
Sam
too.
Jackson.
I think something like
I
this
think there's
will
going
happen.
to be at some point in this movie a Force Ghost. A council of Jedi Force ghosts that pops up. I just have a
Kit Fisto is
it gonna be like a wand on wand and everyone that
like at the end of Harry Potter, yes.
Everyone comes out and gets around Rey and they're like, we're here, maybe.
I see that happening. You've got Sam Jackson. So you had Sam Jackson on a green screen stage for like how long for the Avengers movies? Like it takes 5 minutes to put a robe on him. And have him just stand there in front of a green screen. So I'm just saying.
He's gonna have a weird mouth because they CGI'd out his mustache.
His beard, he's gonna have a Superman baby mouth around his Nick Fury beard. And that's my second Last Jedi.
Well, we're gonna find.
Sorry, Rise of Skywalker.
We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out if those predictions are true. Guys, let us know. Do you guys have any weird predictions for this one? Let us know in the comments. And are they just all Force Ghost related predictions? Most of mine are. Guys, we're SJU on Fandom Entertainment. Make sure you like and subscribe. SJU is on every morning. This is our entertainment morning show. It's like The View, but whatever this was. Then we have a lot of other cool programming as well on this channel. Evolution of Panel to Screen. We do a lot of really cool, just weird, fun videos on this channel. We appreciate you guys caring about our weird stuff. Because I honestly think that this industry is like, in every industry, if there's an entertainment, they're like, we're nothing without the fans. But I honestly feel like this industry can unequivocally say, like, we don't exist unless you watch and care about this. So we really appreciate it.
We're Schrodinger's YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Fandom without the fans is just dumb, guys.
I'm going to drop this. Can we pay for this?
I'm so mad at you. That's
Sorry.
Brilliant. Someone in the company's going to run with it, and you're not going to see it die.
You don't do stuff like this. Work for hire. Learn from Jack Kirby.
May I yes and your slogan? Fandom without fans is just dumb. Get it?
Wait a minute.
Fandom without fans is just dumb. Moving on. I'm not gonna lie, I thought I had a winner there. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You want to talk Chris Nolan a little bit with us?
Sure, whatever moves us from that awkward moment where I dumbly tried to capitalize on Eric's great joke.
I live in the awkward moment. I was born in it. Look, it's cool. I just discovered yesterday that I've said truncated wrong my entire life. So
That wasn't a one-day only thing?
no, that was always.
Dude, I got in trouble for saying
forever.
kerfluffle instead of kerfuffle.
Yeah.
Kerfuffle is proper. Kerfluffle, I'm adding an extra L.
I've always said kerfluffle.
I think I have too.
See, Dan?
It is kerfuffle.
Is it kerfluffle?
No.
No, kerfuffle.
It's kerfuffle.
It's
Fuffle.
It's
Weird.
kerfuffle.
Not fluff.
I've definitely been saying it wrong.
That's a weird Berenstein.
Fluffle just is more
Kerfluffle sounds nicer.
Sounds nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. This is what I like about this team. If one of us trips, we all fall together.
Yeah.
So the title was revealed for the next Christopher Nolan movie. This is via Deadline. Warner Brothers revealed that shooting has begun on Tenet, which is the official new title of Christopher Nolan's next movie. It's a really incredible ensemble cast is Michael Caine, Kenneth Branagh, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Dimple Kapadia, and Clemens Posey joined the previously announced Batman, Elizabeth Debicki, and John David Washington. This is his first movie since Dunkirk in 2017. Jump on this one for us a little bit, Danathan?
Yeah, action movie. It's described as an action movie, action epic around international espionage, which I like. I think that Chris Nolan is one of the most pure old school filmmakers in the sense of just the theatrical experience, scale, the idea that that cinema is a format to bring people things that they can't get in any other art form, not on television, nowhere else. Just cinema is its own medium with certain advantages, and he is, by God, he's going to take advantage of every single one of those advantages. I think he's like Kubrick in that way, where Kubrick never made just a movie. He made something that was made to be seen on this huge screen, and that's how he approached everything, whether it was with the sound design, the cinematography. And I think that Nolan is a filmmaker in much the same way. That's why I was not the world's biggest fan of Dunkirk, just as a storytelling clockwork machine, but the scope and the scale of it, and it's stunning filmmaking.
Yeah.
And so to hear that he's going to bring that to this sort of what sounds like a spy type action film, I love that. I'm excited to see what his take on that is, because Inception is probably the closest thing he's done to that.
Little elements of The Dark Knight and then Inception.
Yeah, he's so solid as a practical effects filmmaker.
I love how he uses IMAX too, by the way.
Yeah. Just based on I don't love Dark Knight Rises very much at all, but that opening plane sequence when they free Bane is dope, and that makes me very excited for what I am now just in my head calling Christopher Nolan does Mission Impossible. It's probably not what this movie is in the slightest,
Right.
And I might be setting myself up for disappointment, but
You never know.
yeah. No, I think this seems pretty rad.
But also, espionage is one of those. I think he could bring his highfalutin Oscar bait sort of style-y to this sort of action movie, because this term elevated horror, elevated action, kill it with fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just be what you are.
And at the same time, though, there are people who are trafficking in that, and I think Nolan has got him a nice little lane in. Hey, this is a superhero that you can bring your dad to. Your dumb old dad who hates everything and thinks all the movie stuff is fake. If you go down Maple Street, you can't end up on Rosewood. This movie's fake. Get the popcorn. We're out of here. That guy watches a Christopher Nolan movie going, wow. So awesome! Look at those soldiers' heads explode. Oh God! So it's like I really think that him doing his so-called elevated act with spy stuff, I think is cool. But I think we've already got elevated spy movies now, and they're called Mission Impossible movies.
Sure.
So, but
it's a
I
different
think
aesthetic.
Yes.
Christopher McQuarrie has a much different aesthetic. Like I love that they are very cinematic, but Nolan has his own feel that's not like really almost any other filmmaker, particularly as he's given license to do more of what he wants with movies.
Yeah, and he's certainly not known for a light touch. It's it's not, his movies are not very humor driven. I feel like the Mission Impossible movies they're a little winky, like they're not like parodies, but they're having a little fun with the concept. Where you feel like his stuff is pretty straightforward. But yeah, you look at Inception, and you think about just the Tom Hardy and Joseph Gordon-Levitt stuff, and if you just sort of made that into an actual espionage movie with taking away some of the sci-fi trappings, or with Dark Knight take away the Batman trappings, I think it could be really cool, and we know it'll be sort of intense and, like you mentioned, just visually amazing.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite jokes with Nolan, and we hit it pretty hard in like the Nolan Honest trailer and stuff like that, is how he plays with time. Yeah. And drawing the big old time wang on a chalkboard to explain Memento. But I do think that a fun genre to play with, manipulating time to sort of manipulate your audience on how you're telling a story, is an espionage story, is a spy tale. I think that could be really cool.
Well, so many movies in that genre, they rely on that.
There's a ticking clock scenario, right?
Or there's a thing where you rewind the movie. Right. To tell people that there was something there that they didn't know. If it's done well, it feels well done. If it's not, it feels cheap. But like this idea of just like, oh, you thought you knew about this character? Well, let's rewind the clock. And then I think that there are definitely some of his conventions that could play very well with this genre.
Yeah, that definitely support it very well. And I also do really like the description of genre movie. You can take your dad that only watches A&E too.
It's real.
That is 100% my dad, I think. I think this will be rad. I know, as much as people are railing about why are you negatively judging Pattinson for a role like Bruce Wayne or Batman when, like, look at his filmography? Is this probably definitely, what am I saying? I just had a stroke. Is this a blessing in disguise for him?
It's interesting to note, by the way, it's like, he's doing 2 huge Warner Brothers movies back to back if he does Batman right after this Nolan thing. But yeah, it's like so many people, and again, we're talking about the worst part of the internet again, but the people who were doing exactly what you expect them to do, because I got pretty retweeted on my tweet about Patterson just because I think it was one of the first ones, and I got some of those like, we don't want this, we don't want Twilight in Batman, we don't want a sparkly vampire, just all the like stupid, like he played this one role so that's all he'll play. But I'm like, all those guys saying that worship Nolan, because it's like he is so worshipped, and they're going to absolutely see this movie. And I was like, I bet a lot of those people haven't even seen Twilight, much less anything Pattinson's done since. It's like they literally are judging him on the posters to Twilight. And now he's going to be in this giant Christopher Nolan movie that's probably going to be a great movie that'll probably give a great performance.
And then they'll say Christopher Nolan fixed Robert Pattinson.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
Which, you know what? Look, I don't care how you got to church. I just care that you got to church.
Yes. Twilight, and then nothing else, and then a Christopher Nolan movie, and now he's awesome.
My super, super dorky observation I made this morning on Twitter, by the way, is that Clemence Posey played Fleur de Coeur in the Harry Potter movies, and Robert Pattinson. So 2 of the Triwizard Tournament members are in this movie. So I'd like to believe that Nolan was like, I want to get them all.
Get them all.
What if Nolan throws him in a hedge maze? What if Nolan throws him in a hedge maze and like the most winky thing he's ever done? And then you just find out that he loves wizard books.
It's like, don't we know each other? Weren't we in some sort of tournament together? And they look at the camera.
It's like, what is he doing? Let's jump into some fan questions, you guys. We've got 3. We got a couple really good ones today. Sorry, I shouldn't have named the actual amount because I don't know how much time we've got to get through them all.
Fair enough.
A fan who is either named TN or is just the state of Tennessee.
As a person.
I kind of
dig this one. what's the weirdest / most memorable starving artist meal you've ever eaten? We've all been there when we came out west to do our stupid made-up jobs. What were your early day weirdest, saddest?
There's two that I remember. One is, it used to be, there was a convenience store down the street from my old apartment, and I used to go down and just buy a sleeve or a box of saltine crackers. And I would just have peanut butter and saltine crackers.
Yep.
I'm a big peanut butter
Because
saltine cracker guy.
it was cheap. You can get a jar of peanut butter and saltine crackers for a pretty good amount. And then I remember there was one particularly lean phase, both in my body and in my career, where we had a party and somebody had brought a massive bag of pretzels. And we put them into a huge bowl that was sitting in our kitchen. And I would say that there was a good month where a large part of my diet was eating out of that huge, massive bowl of pretzels. Like, because I was watching Mad Men for the first time during that time, because I was nothing else to do. And I will always associate the early seasons of Mad Men with the taste of pretzels. Because I just remember I was eating pretzels so much that it's like that sense memory thing. When I think about season 2 of Mad Men, I think about salty pretzels.
Now I'm picturing Don Draper doing his pitch on pretzels. Yeah. We want to bring you back. Pretzels. It evokes a time from the past.
Yeah, to when you were very sad and hungry.
Right.
Like the psyche of an American man, the pretzel is twisted and salty.
And what about you?
Mine's really weird.
Mine are just depressing. So
I basically I didn't have any money. I was in between. Like, I was supposed to get this check from this job like the next day, and I had $0. And I went out on a date with a girl that I went out right before I met my girlfriend. And so she goes, "I'll take you out. I'll pay, and we'll go eat the Cheesecake Factory." And so we go eat the Cheesecake Factory, and I eat my giant meal because I'm not gonna be able to eat until I get paid like 3 o'clock in the PM next day. So I eat my giant meal, no leftovers because I'm stupid. And then she goes, "You know what I'm gonna do? I know you're kind of poor and stuff, and you know your birthday's coming up. I'm gonna buy you a cheesecake." And so she buys me a key lime cheesecake. Wow. She buys me an entire key lime cheesecake. And so I'm like, "Oh, dog, I could eat this until my check comes." So I eat for breakfast, I eat a piece of cheesecake. For lunch, I eat 2 pieces of cheesecake. And for dinner, 2 sensible pieces of cheesecake. And I woke up the next morning. Oh, and by the way, that day, my check didn't clear. My check didn't clear. So, and I woke up the next day dreading my cheesecake breakfast, and I didn't even make it there because, let's just say, that's a bad experience for your body.
Yeah.
That's your whole body, like this way, that way, everything's going nuts. It was pretty awful. And to this day, I cannot eat cheesecake nor key lime cheesecake.
Oh, that's a
any sort of key lime anything, I'm out.
This is like the sadness of my wife not liking anything pumpkin flavored, which I love because she won a pumpkin pie eating contest once. But it was too much pumpkin at once. So she's out.
You got. I'm assuming your spouse is Caucasian as well.
No, she's not.
Oh, I was about to say, you got the white girl that don't like pumpkins.
No.
But that's nice.
Filipina, yeah.
That's nice.
Unfortunately, though, I'm all about the pumpkin stuff.
But dude, in the autumn, pumpkin is in everything.
It's true.
You'll get poisoned.
Thankfully.
Well, when we were living in the Bay, my then fiance and I. In between gigs, we would just do temp work. And if you're not in an area where temp work is a thing, that's literally where just like an agent calls you and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be a receptionist for 3 days?" And you go, "Okay." And when we made the plan to move to Los Angeles, we had like a nice little nest egg, and our temp agency was like, "Oh, we have a big branch in Los Angeles. We'll literally just transfer you down. You'll start working ASAP." And we were like, "Great." So we had like a pretty decent nest egg / the expectation of temp work. The week we moved down is when all the banks collapsed.
Oh dear.
No.
And all of a sudden there was just no one was hiring. There was no do you want to come file for a day? There was nothing. So as we were running down that nest egg, I had taken a comedy writing gig that was like a weekly gig that I literally only took because the writing staff met once a week at a pizza place and they fed us.
Yeah.
And so I showed up to write in the heart of Hollywood. By the way, if you ever visit Los Angeles, don't come visit Hollywood. Like, I can't remember whose bit it was. I heard it years ago, but they were like, the reason the Walk of Fame exists is so that you look straight down and you don't notice like the piss-covered walls to either side of you. Like there's some highlights, but most of it is just that. Don't go there.
By the way, whoever came up with the idea of making the sidewalk a tourist attraction, great thank you on behalf of the residents of Los Angeles. It's great to try to walk somewhere, and the 2 miles of sidewalk are...
But, so I give you that just to make sure you set the scene as depressing as possible.
Right.
As I show up for work at my pizza dinner, and they're like, "Oh, did no one email you? It was canceled tonight." And I'm like, "No."
But there's still pizza, right?
So I go next door to there was a Popeyes, and I was.
I know where you were working.
Yeah, you know exactly where I was working.
Yeah. I know that Popeyes.
Yeah.
And I think I was able to order like some chicken wedges and I think a leg. Or not chicken, potato wedges.
Say, what the hell are chicken wedges?
Y'all ain't never heard of chicken wedges? It's like when Long John Silver's just started selling leftover pieces of fried, but with chicken.
Sorry, chicken is the wedge.
You don't want to know. Potato wedges and a leg, and I cried in that Popeyes. I cried in that Popeyes, man.
Right in that exact same Popeyes.
You cried in that Popeyes. Cried in that same
Popeyes got some stories, huh?
Yeah.
You know where that is in Hollywood. No. There's a lot of people that have cried in that Popeyes.
Absolutely.
Oh my god. And then the other weird story, I also got paid to rewrite a screenplay, but they didn't have money to pay us, so one of the guys who was directing it, he got his start because he did commercials. His brother ran an imported frozen food company, and so they paid us in pork buns. And I had...
It's a good title.
So many to the point where I was still working a day job at the time, like to the point that people who never even acknowledged I existed before...
That's the pork bun guy.
We're like, finally people are like, hey, we gotta ask. Like, everyone wants to know. What's going on? Because I ate pork buns like every day for like 2 months.
What's up, PB?
You're like, what's up? That's what the pork bun situation. Pork buns. Yeah, we just had stacks of them in our kitchen. To this day, I can't.
But the worst is being poor as hell and working around food that you're not supposed to have. Because when I was 19, I worked at Schnucks grocery store in Missouri, and our checks were garbage, and you couldn't take any of the food. And they would make food for the big industrial vats they sell the people, take numbers and stuff.
Right.
And so they would throw it away like on the hour, just throw a bunch of it away. And us enterprising bums were just like, no, you ain't. So I jacked like a whole Thanksgiving chicken and like macaroni and everything that was going to get thrown away. But it was perfectly good, but they were thrown away by whatever standards.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
health.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, health standards.
Those are the standards.
Hey, I ate cheesecake for dinner. I don't know from these things. So I had my whole dinner, and the manager came upstairs, and I saw something, my spider sense went off 1 second before that, and I got up away from the food and I went to the corner of the thing and like I was getting some drink. And he comes and goes, "Who in the hell stole this food? Whose is this?" And I'm just like, "I don't know, bro." And the other people in the break room were like, "I don't know." And he grabbed it and he threw it in the trash. And that was what I was going to eat for the next 24 hours. So that's my other story about that was
night
rough.
You went to the Cheesecake Factory.
And the rest is history.
It's all glamour, guys.
I used to be 175 pounds and the cheesecake got me.
Until I took a cheesecake to the meat.
You guys have better stories than I do about the food thing. I just remember buying a lot of Kraft macaroni and cheese in bulk because I couldn't cook and I was poor, so just buying as many boxes of that as I could. I do remember though. Have you ever been to CinemaCon?
I'm not.
Okay, so I went once when it was still Show West, but I was totally poor at the time. I was doing like a tiny, my first job doing anything reviewing movies for a website, but it was like, barely any money, and I was doing a day job. But one time I did get to go to Vegas to at the time Show West. And the funny thing about Show West, or now CinemaCon, is because it's basically a convention for theater owners. Like if you walk the floor, you just keep being given free samples of movie theater candy and popcorn. And all these, because companies trying to sell it, be like, this is a candy you don't have, but you should, because it's great. I just came back with like a duffel bag filled with mostly candy, some popcorn, just stuff. And when I had
kind of cornbread,
so I barely had money to buy food, but I was like, ooh, I have weird buttered popcorn flavor Mike and Ike's, and like, all these like strange candy. There's a reason most of these candies were not in your movie theater.
There's a reason movie theaters didn't buy those candies.
But for many months, I was like, all right, I can't buy much for dinner,
that
but
hurts.
Weird candy I can try.
So funny.
Neil asked, what actor would you like to see get a career revival? I really like this question a lot. I'll kick off a name. I don't know if it's a revival so much, but I do think she deserves more, and that's Judy Greer. I think she's such a talented actor. She's so funny to me that she just continuously gets handed like, you're the mom. Or, you know, and not that a mom role can't be a great role, but the mom roles she's typically handed are like, Scott Lang, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
all right, Judy, this is your motivation. Okay, you're getting divorced while your kids are getting chased by dinosaurs. Go.
Yeah. She's a phenomenal actress, and that's somebody who I think deserves a revival / boost.
This is one of those tricky ones where it's like I have so many people I think about constantly, and then of course when I'm actually given the question, I can't think of it. So here's one that just is coming to mind because I just went to a screening at the New Beverly here a couple weeks ago of Jennifer's Body, which held up tremendously well and did make me feel. It's a great movie, and it did make me feel like, you know, Megan Fox she got a pretty raw deal in the long run. And I'm not saying like she is the has amazing range or anything, but she can be funny. And in Jennifer's Body, she definitely knew what she was doing as far as quickly sending up her image. She had a funny run on New Girl a couple years ago. I know it seems like partially she hasn't been acting as much as like a decision because she's like raising a family. But I feel like you could find a good comedy role for her, and I think that would be the best thing because it was like she was so pushed as the new sex symbol, and then there was so much backlash to that. But it's like I think she clearly wants to do more comedy, and that's the thing she's kind of really stuck out the most in a positive way. So Megan Fox. I feel like
it's frustrating that like the worst impulses of Michael Bay are what got to define her as a person. I can get behind that.
And
one.
watch Jennifer's Body if you haven't, because it's really good.
Yeah, that's a fantastic movie. Danathan?
Katie Holmes.
Okay.
Katie Holmes, I feel like, was defined by her marriage unfairly at a time where she was just being on the cusp of at least a shot at A-list stardom.
Working with Christopher
Nolan, and then it depends on how you read the story about why she passed on The Dark Knight, but apparently a large part of it, according to some reports, was that it was thought by not just her, but others in her life, that the other movie that was not a ruinous failure would be a better career move for her because she would be in the lead. And I wonder if in the Wayback Machine, if she had a little more degree of control over her career and really just her personal life, if she might have had a better shot. But I think that she was a good actress. I grew up watching her on Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, she's great in Wonder Boys.
Yeah, I feel like that she was, and she still pops up here and there, but I feel like the maelstrom of her personal life overshadowed, and really not through much fault of her own, her career at the time when she was just beginning to break out. And I would like to see her get a shot at blazing that trail, not underneath this just umbrella of just like, what's Tom doing? What's up with Scientology? Where's your kid? Where's the, you know, it's just, it felt like that overwhelmed her career to a degree that I wish that I could see more from her.
That's a solid pick.
Agreed.
Ed?
Okay, I have two, and I'll be super brief. One, Rachel True. Rachel True was going to be the hottest damn thing ever.
Big
and
90s crush of mine, by the way.
super big. Oh my god, dude. And but like beautiful and all that. But like she had a real gravitas when she was acting. I felt. I thought she was a decent actor for somebody so pretty. You know what I mean? And she had a good appeal. And I just think that some of her, I think she got kind of blacklisted. You know, after stuff like The Craft. Like they don't invite her to like conventions to talk about The Craft, and they invite literally everybody else that's still alive for the damn thing. And it's just like this almost like coordinated effort to like job her out. It's terrible. So I would like to see her have a resurgence. And the last one is who is kind of getting a resurgence. So that's why I'm just going to mention him because I think it's cool that it's actually happening. Is Carl Weathers. I love the fact that people are starting to understand that Carl Weathers, talk about getting jobbed out of your career. I tell everybody all the time, being too early is the same as being wrong. And he was too early for America to give a damn about all his, your son of a bitch muscles. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Action Jackson, 5 years later, Action Jackson kicks everybody's ass at the box office. 5 years later. He's just too early, dude. You know what I mean? And he got jobbed out of this super great action, Stallone-esque, frankly, career that he deserved. Because he was too soon for everybody to take this type of guy seriously in that role. And he was a better actor than all those dudes, too. Put him in an acting challenge with Stallone and Schwarzenegger, those dudes are burger. After he finishes Shakespeare and these fools up. This dude, you know what I mean? He's a good actor.
That's a really solid pick,
So I would love to see both of those have a true career resurgence.
Judy Greer and Carl Weathers, Arrested Development connection.
Yep.
You got yourself a stew, baby.
That's right. The other one I was thinking of, because I feel like every few years someone goes, he's really good, but then for whatever, it's in comedy we call it like a museum audience, where like you don't get the momentum of laughs, like you do a joke and everyone goes ha 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 ha. And I feel like his career is also kind of like that, and that's Zahn McClarnon, who was in that really amazing standout episode of Westworld last year, as the Native American chief who like realizes something's going on, and he had that one great sort of bottle episode.
He was on Fargo.
Yeah, he was in Fargo. Yeah. He's incredible. He's an amazing actor, but again, like I think like Carl Weathers, he gets sort of put in a box where it's like, you're an incredible actor, you could be a leading man, you could do it all, but you're a Native American actor, so you're a character actor. He's, I think I've mentioned it on air, there's a show, Pierce Brosnan show called The Sun on right now, that he's phenomenal in, and he plays a Native American chief in that one as well, but they give him so much more to do than just, I'm a mystic chief. Like he's he's this fully realized three-dimensional character. God, that guy is so good. And also the dude has also not aged. So make him a lead. Like give that dude some movies. He's incredible.
Why can't that be a guy be an FBI director or something? You know what I mean?
Something. Yeah.
I'm gonna totally mispronounce his last name. I always do. But the bad guy in John Wick 3, Mark Dacascos. Am I saying his last name right?
Oh yeah, Dacascos.
Yeah. It's really cool to see him in that movie. Just because if you look back at that dude's career, he was one of the stars of Double Dragon with Scott Wolf, and.
Deserves a rewatch. It is delightfully goofy in fun ways, and not why am I wasting my time ways. Just gonna throw it out there.
He had his own Action Jackson. I think it was called Only the Strong, but he had this will launch you, like a lot of guys in the 90s did that didn't work out. And then he kind of was off the radar for a while, but he'd pop up and he'd like Brotherhood of the Wolf is cool, but not a lot of people saw it. Then he had this weird Iron Chef like Stardom that was a completely different thing, and he's a bad guy in Hawaii Five-0. So it's really cool that he's like the villain and he's great in the #1 movie in America right now. It's just like
that's cool.
It's because if you look at his history, I think a lot of people that's probably the first time they'll know him from Iron Chef or they won't really know him. But it's like no, look at that dude's IMDb. It goes way far back.
And then everyone's like, of course he's the guy from Brotherhood of the Wolf. I should rewatch Brotherhood of the Wolf.
And Double Dragon should get a sequel.
Oh god.
Or at least a Criterion release.
There you go. Shout Factory.
At least. I think that's a good. Does anybody? I don't know if anyone's got any additions.
Those are great picks,
I
guys.
think there's a lot of people sort of. I think you guys really hit on something interesting. interesting. Michael Jai White's a guy that I think belongs in that list. Yep. There's a lot of folks.
I was thinking about Alison Lohman recently, because Drag Me to Hell and Matchstick Men. There was like this in like the aughts, whatever we're calling the first decade. Like she seemed to be really on the rise, and she was really good in a lot of things, and then she kind of just fell off the radar.
A hell of a list. Joe?
I think I'd also like to see Claire Forlani in something.
She's good.
Yeah, I'd like to see her in something.
Except for when people meme the Meet Joe Black scene.
Besides that,
Brad Pitt's walking away from her. Yeah.
Let's close out. Let's close out with this one,
imagine
guys.
her agent being like, "She's in a hot GIF."
Right.
That gif's blowing up right now.
You've seen this GIF everywhere.
So let's close out with this one. Michael asked, Dan spent last weekend at Molten Fest, and so Michael was wondering, first of all, hey Dan,
hi.
How was Molten Fest?
Hi Michael. It was great. It was Leonard Maltin. Beyond being just a great film critic, what he does for film preservation, the whole fest is 3 days at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. It was so much fun. It was all about movies. It was devoted to movies that were overlooked, and a lot of movies that I had not seen. The first night was a movie that I had seen, which was Sing Street, which I love, and it was so great seeing that with an audience again. And then there's movies like Citizen Ruth, which is Alexander Payne's first film with Laura Dern, which I had not seen. They came and did a Q&A at Laura Dern, Alexander Payne, Mary Kay Place came and some of the crew. Songcatcher, which is a great movie I never even heard of, with Janet McTeer. It's about this music teacher who goes into the mountains like of Appalachia and finds all of this folk music that's never been heard and is trying to publish it and get it. And it's Aidan Quinn is in it. Such a great movie. There's a documentary called Exporting Raymond, which is about Phil Rosenthal, who's the guy that created Everybody Loves Raymond with Ray Romano, and trying to get it done in Russia. Like basically supervising the Russian version of Everybody Loves Raymond is hilarious. I'd heard of it, I'd never seen it. They played The Death of Superman Lives, which was John Schnepp's documentary with Holly Payne. She was there to introduce it. It was great to see so many friendly faces there. I'd actually hadn't seen it, so it was great to see it for the first time on the big screen. But on top of that, just the passion that Leonard and Jesse and Alice, the Maltons, have, and Stacey Howard, who helped put it together, and so many of the volunteers. Just for film, every movie was preceded by a short. A lot of them these are not shorts that you can find on YouTube or Archive or whatever. These were prints of shorts that came from like the USC and UCLA Film Archive. And it's such an amazing, there was one that was done by, starring Peter Benchley, the guy who wrote Jaws, his grandfather. Starring him, and it's like this guy, it was made in the 30s or the late 20s, about this guy giving a lecture on like a technocracy and what it is, but he's just like, it's lost in his speech, and he just starts saying random numbers, and then he has there's a lot of chart-based humor, which means I like it. Wow. It goes through these charts which are absolutely meaningless and just gets completely lost in what he's saying. It's hilarious. They showed a silent film that has one of the best visual gags that I'd seen. It was this guy who has a car that's powered by a magnet, and he just points the magnet at whatever car goes by and just follow it. It's as good as any of the other silent comedy. That's the short subjects, short animations. There's one that's a vaudeville act from the 20s that really, for the first time, I got an understanding of what it was like for people to see vaudeville, because it's really just them filming a vaudeville act, and just it brings the history to life in such a vibrant way, and people don't give old movies age-wise the attention they deserve to begin with. And then older shorts, it was a side of film that I didn't even realize how much film history lies in these shorts. So it was great movies preceded by these amazing shorts. It really was incredible, and I wish more people had taken advantage of the opportunity, because Leonard Maltin and I speak the same language. He is all about preservation of the theatrical experience, that there's no other way to see a movie. There are a lot of other ways, but there's no way like in a theater with people and experiencing that communally. You can't replicate that. You can't replicate it at home. That doesn't mean it's the only valid way, but you can't replicate that experience.
Yeah.
And
he's so committed to that, and just exposing people to films they haven't seen and haven't heard. As a film fan, it was great to spend a weekend amongst other people that have that same passion. And I hope they're already talking about next year. And I sure hope that there is one next year, because if you didn't go this year, like, it's just, if you love film, even if you haven't heard of the movies, and I hadn't heard of a lot of the movies, they were all so good. And that's what a film festival should be about. Going to see movies you've never seen, or that you love, or that you haven't heard of, and finding your new favorites, and then telling other people about it. It was so much fun. We had such a great weekend, and if you need to take advantage of these opportunities if they come and before you, not just this film festival, but if anyone is doing this kind of thing, it's really, you can't replicate that experience.
Well, in that spirit, Michael also asked, and we'll close out on this because I know we went a little long today. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. He also asked, if you had your own film festival, what would your opening film be, and what would your closing film be?
My opening film would be Network.
Yes. Yes.
And my closing film would be Top Secret. So if you haven't seen Top Secret, it is just as funny as Airplane. It's from the same directors and writers. It stars Val Kilmer as like Elvis, basically, and it is hilarious. I don't know why it didn't get the same acclaim as Airplane, and that nobody really knows about it. If you haven't seen Top Secret, watch Top Secret, especially if you love Airplane. It's just as funny as Airplane. It is literally just as funny as Airplane. It's so good. So yeah, that would be my closing.
Yeah, I think it's a title. Nobody found out about the movie.
It's funny because it was in between Airplane and Naked Gun, which are both huge and are both great. But Top Secret's just. I'm
gonna go. My opening film would be a '70s animated movie called Rock and Rule, which is a very bizarre post-apocalyptic musical about rock and roll saving the universe. And my closing film would be another animated film called Redline, not the live-action motorcycle Fast and Furious knockoff. A really bizarre Japanese animated film about like a sci-fi race that just has the craziest visuals, super fun. Those would be my opening and closing salvo. Eric?
So it's funny, as you were talking about it, like overlooked films, and that was where my mind went anyway. And then I thought, suddenly I was thinking about a lot of movies from 1997. That wasn't the plan, but it just came to mind.
It happens.
I was like, 1997 Film Festival, where you could do that for every year. So I'd open with, on a depressing note, with The Sweet Hereafter, which when it came out was very acclaimed, but I think has kind of been forgotten as time went on, with Ian Holm. And Sarah Polley. It's a great movie. It's one of my favorite sad movies ever. And then I'm going to throw in, I'm going to cheat and say in the middle of that I'd show Starship Troopers, even though it's certainly found its fandom over the years. But I'd close out, and you inspired me by mentioning Rachel True with 1997's utterly bizarre movie Nowhere. And I don't know if anyone's seen Nowhere, the Greg Araki movie Nowhere. It's so weird. It's I can't explain it, but I love it. It has a really funny, weird cast of either people that were sort of on the cusp of stardom, and Scott Conn is in it, and Rachel True, and Christina Applegate. But then there was kitschy casting, like purposely kitschy casting, like John Ritter, Christopher Knight, and Eve Plum from the Brady Bunch, Charlotte Rae from Facts of Life. It's so strange and weird, and there's an alien in it, and none of it makes sense, but I love it. It's just sometimes a weird, when something's weird in just the right way for you.
Yeah.
So that's how I would close out my 1997 film festival.
Ed, close us out.
That is great. I can't beat any of these movies, so I'm just gonna go super Ed Greer. So first off, I'm gonna have a short in there. I saw a short years ago. It was called The Old Negro Space Program. And it posited a world where black folks who could not get into NASA for obvious reasons back then devised their own spaceships and went to space, but it somehow didn't count. Because it wasn't Major League Space Program. So Skippy Shoes McGee just flew up to space. He landed on the moon first, and then Loose Shoes McGraw was up next, and all this it was just so funny, and it was like Ken Burns style, and it was just sort of panning across these Photoshop pictures. Fantastic. It's very, very funny. So I would program that, and you know what? I think I'm just gonna have me a Shane Black Fest. I'm going to play Long Kiss Goodnight and Last Boy Scout. You pick what's open and what's closing. Because both of those movies don't get enough respect for, again, being too early is a lot of being wrong, but also being with weird studios, going through weird stuff at the time with your release and stuff is the same thing as being too early and being wrong. You know what I mean? So he got jobbed on both of those. I'm saying jobbed 15 times today. But yeah, I think he got jobbed out on both of those movies, and they both should have done better. So I would
Greer,
love that.
Champion of black shorts and black films. Guys, that's our show.
That was way better than the Fandom thing.
We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have a good one.